Hey guys, welcome back to the farm. I'm in the greenhouse and I have rain on my glasses because we have finally gotten a decent amount of rain. One of the great things about having a greenhouse is that you can work in the rain. And I really need to work on the greenhouse today. She has definitely seen better days. Before we had a farm, before we had any kind of gardens to speak of, I had issues keeping my house clean. I still have issues keeping my house clean, but that's another discussion. And one of the ways that I kind of forced myself into a routine of keeping the house clean was every Friday I hosted tea and coffee at my house, and I invited all my friends and all their babies, and it became a really fun routine for everyone. Similar to that, I host garden tours here on the channel every Tuesday, and having that to look forward to really helps me stay in the garden. It helps me be hyper aware of the garden, and I do take care of it much better knowing that I'm gonna have you guys show up every week. So thanks. I think it's accountability. Part of discipline can definitely be accountability. So this is the current state of things. There's a lot going on. It's definitely lush and lovely in here. And there are definitely some things that need some TLC. I haven't harvested tomatoes in about a week, and there's quite a lot of tomatoes on the vine. I had been leaving them on the vine until they got fully ripened because I was running out of counter space in my house to allow them to ripen indoors. One thing that I've noticed about the tomatoes lately is that they are actually not fully ripening on the top. The tops of these tomatoes, this one has a yucky spot on it, are staying yellow and a little bit more firm, and I've gone to Google to figure out why, because Lord knows I don't know everything. So it says, normally the chlorophyll in an unripe tomato starts to break down at the blossom end and continues around and up the fruit. Green or yellow shoulders occur when the chlorophyll either does not break down as the fruit ripens, or if it breaks down too slowly. This can occur for a couple reasons, both weather related, period. First, green shoulders can be caused by too much direct sun. That's honestly what I suspected, was that this was sunburn. And it may also manifest when temperatures remain high for a prolonged time. Both things are probably true. So if you're seeing this on your tomatoes, it likely could be sun and heat, which we have had an exceptional amount of lately. So most of my tomatoes look like this, that's why. And the ones that have yucky spots on them like this, they're going to be pig food. This particular plant here has the worst disease in the entire greenhouse. I noticed not long ago that it was starting to develop almost a dry, fungal looking ring around the base of the plant. And essentially I believe it's killed the plant basically from the bottom up. So I'm going to be giving all of this fruit to the pigs. It's definitely gone by. This is next level type disease where there's no coming back from, and disease on plants can attract pests, and it can just be a snowball effect. I'm going to be cutting this plant off at the base instead of physically tearing the roots out. Since the roots have already started to break down, I don't think this process will take very long. That's how I like to tear out many of my plants. I'll just cut them at the soil level, and I'll let them break down in the soil and add nutrients to the soil. I'm not super concerned about leaving the diseased portion down there. I really think that the soil microbes will be able to take care of that, break it down, and it shouldn't affect future plantings in this planting hole. Now, because of the way we've trellised in here, I think what I'm going to have to do in order to get this plant out and not rattle the other plants too much, they're all kind of interwoven in this Florida weave trellising system here, I'm going to have to cut it in segments to get it out. Whoops. See, that's what I was trying to avoid, was rattling neighbor plants and getting some of the fruit to fall. But truthfully, we have gotten so many tomatoes this year, this doesn't bother me too badly at all. There's varying opinions opinions out there whether or not you should compost plants with disease on them. I think sometimes it's inevitable that plants get disease at some point in the season, especially if you have a really long season like we do. We're gardening in southwestern Kentucky, zone 7B. Our last frost date is around mid-April and our first frost date isn't until the end of October. So oftentimes this is how our plants die. They get some kind of disease due to the heat and the humidity, and they look a lot like this. We have pigs this year that I'm going to be feeding these dead tomato plants to and those rotten tomatoes. And honestly, at our farm here, we haven't started a really big composting effort. One of the reasons that people don't like to compost disease like this is because they fear that it can basically inoculate their compost pile with that fungal or with that bacteria. Lots of people on the internet say that you can do it as long as you manage your compost heap well. We are not expert composters, so I am just going to stick to what I know, and that's manure for re-amending the garden instead of compost. I find that right now, animal feed is much more expensive than the free manure that I get here as a byproduct year-round. So I opt not to compost much really directly here on our farm. I feed it to the pigs and then I'll collect their manure later. It is really strange to see that bare spot in the tomato row in the greenhouse, but I already have plans for what I'm going to put there, and I'll talk about that during the garden tour on Tuesday. So right around probably 30% of the tomatoes in the greenhouse right now kind of look like this. And you might be wondering, does it make me sad to basically just be feeding all of these tomatoes to the pigs? And the answer is no. I've actually gotten way more tomatoes than I ever could have hoped for out of the greenhouse this year. This was my first year growing with this variety. It's a determinate variety called Heat Master. And being a determinate tomato plant, I actually didn't expect as much fruit out of these plants as they have given me. And some of them have actually started putting on new flowers, which blows my mind because some of the first flowers came on these plants at around 2 months ago, so they are still trying to produce. So no, and I get to make up for our feed bill a little bit with these tomatoes. We have more than covered all of our tomato canning goals for the season, and I've even been able to give away pounds of tomatoes and sell some as well. And so even tomatoes that look like this still have value for us as pig feed. Pigs do a really good job putting food away, but there's a lot of stuff that they leave behind, including some of the seeds from the fruits and vegetables that we feed them. And very, very often we get surprise volunteer plants coming up all around where the pigs have been. And so it's actually a really beautiful little system. There's a rotten, nasty tomato. You can feed it to the pigs. They leave a little bit of seed plus their fertilizer around. And you could very well see another tomato in that place the next year that will give you pounds and pounds more than that one tomato was worth. It's really kind of cool. Actually, a really good example of that are some of the volunteer plants that have come up despite the woven weed fabric that we have in here. Mostly they've come up along the edges, but here we have a Kajari melon. This is some kind of teaspoon tomato. A couple of the blossoms have dropped because of the heat, but there's one there. And then this is another variety of a teaspoon tomato. This one is yellow and is actually one of my favorites. There we go. I'll locate the seed pack for this little tomato and I'll let you know which one it is, but easily one of my favorite tiny tomatoes. They are very, very good. They've got that kind of zip and tang that you can feel in the back of your jawline, like right here. And they've got a lot of that umami punch that I absolutely love. Well, the sun's come out and my camera keeps dying in the heat, so I'm gonna leave you here. If you haven't seen our garden tours yet, I'll go ahead and leave the playlist up there and I'll see you over there.